Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Fergal.
And we're from Movie Smash.
Comic book movies are having a golden age right now with the MCU.
Movies based on comics aren't necessarily a new thing, but they're a big thing.
Join us every other Tuesday on Movie Smash.
We explore these movies and find some hidden gems.
Every other week, we revisit some of the best.
And some of the worst movies based on comics or graphic novels.
Was Green Lantern as bad as you remember?
Heck no!
Is Time Cop the most accurate time travel movie ever created?
Absolutely.
Was Mystery Men way ahead of its time?
Should they be revisited? Should they be forgotten?
Join us on Movie Smash and find out. Listen wherever you find your fine podcasts.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All2ReelToo. My name is Mike Lee Cullen II, and with me, as always, is
Sesame Chord Organ Blues and Carta. There we go.
It's a good name. Good name. Yeah. So today on the show, we're doing something a little different. We're looking at a documentary, so we're probably not going to go break down every minute of the film like we normally do. But yeah, it's a film I think everybody should watch. It's really interesting, especially people that are into the arts and music. Even if you don't like this particular artist, it's really interesting. It's called The Devil and Daniel Johnston, about the singer-songwriter Daniel Johnston, who passed away in 2019. The Internet Movie Database log line for this documentary is Daniel Johnston, manic depressive genius, singer, songwriter, artist, is revealed in this portrait of madness, creativity, and love. It was directed by Jeff Feuerzig, 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 who's a documentary filmmaker who also directed another movie I recommend that you can watch on Amazon Prime, called Author, the J.T. Leroy story, which we may be covering in the future. If we enjoy this whole documentary look at thing, look at documentaries. So, the film stars, if you want to call it, Daniel Johnston as himself, Mabel Johnston, Bill Johnston, Lori Allen, Brian Beatty, Lewis Black, not that Lewis Black, but the writer Lewis Black. Just letting you know. It's a different Lewis.
It could be.
Yeah. David Fair, Jad Fair, Don Goody, Matt Groening, Gibby Haynes, Sally Johnston Reed, Dick Johnston, Margie Johnston, Ken Leake, Kathy McCarty, Freddie Mercury, and archive footage, Thurston Moore, among others. It's an interesting look at his life. What is your reaction to I guess we can just do this whole thing is basically just going to be reaction, not the, So, yeah, more than anything.
It's documentary. Hard to do like a beat by beat thing.
Yeah. So what's your, big takeaways from this movie? We can just go with takeaways and, do that as our episode here.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, it was, I saw this a while back, about maybe like 10 years ago as well. And, or maybe even longer than that. And, it was very sad to watch in some ways. I mean, cause he's just sick, in the mind. And a lot of people don't realize that that's not the physical illness is not the only kind of illness there is, and that people who are mentally sick or mentally ill, it's an illness. It's not, they don't just use the word for no reason. It's an actual illness. And especially in the 80s, having schizophrenia, especially his level, because there are people who have schizophrenia who aren't to the extreme that Daniel was at, you have on full on delusions, but extremely violent ones at time. His music would also suffer because of it, because sometimes, he would just write songs in a frenzy, and some of them would just not that good because, he'd write it in like 10 minutes or whatever, but he'd think it's like, the greatest song ever, type of thing. And I would say like it's inspiring, but at the same time it's also very sad because like, like this idea of like the tortured artist and, like all the great art that they've given the world and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, like a lot of these people, they just have like miserable lives and they're not happy at all. And so it's like, you think like, I'd rather this person be happy and live a good life and then not give us all of this art, as opposed to like, no, I'd rather this person be totally mentally ill and miserable so that they can write a bunch of cool songs for me to listen to. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Like
yeah, it does. I mean, it's sort of like around the same way. I mean, Daniel did, venture into drugs at one point, but still it's like the people that are like, oh, I got to get high all the time just to create art. And it's like, and then they ruin their lives by getting messed up on drugs and stuff. And it's just like, I'd rather you be healthy, even though I love art and I think art is good, but I don't think that all art comes from suffering like a lot of people think. I mean, some good art does come from suffering, but it doesn't mean you have to become an alcoholic or a drug addict or that you have to have like some kind of neurodivergency that causes you to create art. I will say that, drugs are a lot better now than they used to be to help people. I'm talking by drugs, I mean, prescription drugs, are a lot better now to help people. Like, I mean, back when this was going on, when he was still alive and stuff in the 90s and stuff. I mean, in the early 2000s, for me, I'm just saying my own, dealings with neurodivergency and depression and anxiety and different things like that. And in the 80s even too, like with my ADHD and stuff, I know for a fact that some drugs do put a damper on your creativity.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's better drugs out here now that'll like still allow you to have that creative spark, but you just got to find the right ones for each individual is different. And because like I know when I was on a certain medication for my ADHD when I was a kid, it turned me into a zombie, and my parents took me off of it because they noticed that I wasn't myself anymore. Yeah. And I mean, it for better or worse, I just had to kind of deal with the fact that I had ADHD. I didn't, which they called ADD at the time. But the same thing happened to me when I was in college and I was put on some medication for my anxiety and depression that just literally turned me into a zombie. I turned into a different person, had no creative spark. I didn't even want to watch TV ever. I just wanted to sit there. And all I did was like listen to the same music over and over again and do nothing. It was just sad. And it didn't even help me with like my studies or anything. It was just turning me into a zombie.
Yeah. Me too. I was on Xanax for about a year from 2016 and 2017. It was just a very low dose. It wasn't anything extreme. Yeah. It was like literally 0.25 grams. Like that's like what they put on like children. So it was like super. But even with that, I would just like had this weird like feeling like I would just like sometimes I would just get in staring fits. I would just like stare at something for like 5 minutes before realizing I was like staring at something. And like I'd be at work and stuff, but I'd just be like staring at the computer screen until like a customer would come in and I'd be like, oh, or whatever, like just doing nothing. And like, I wasn't really making music during that time. I could enjoy TV. At least I did have that. I could watch movies and stuff. But like, I mean, it was just so much like there's so many things I just didn't feel like doing. Like
it's so different. Like different drugs react for different people different ways. It's why I personally never tell people what I'm on publicly. And I try not to even privately because I don't want them to think, oh, well, Mike seems okay on what he's on. Maybe I should take that. And I don't want you to take something because I say it or you hear a celebrity say it or whatever. It's just, you got to talk to your doctor and work it out for yourself because what works for person A isn't going to work for person B, C, D, X, whatever, So, yeah, it's...
And plus, too, I remember they also put me on Celexa at the same time I was on Xanax. So that was probably the combination of those two things where I was just like, out for a while. Like I just didn't, because especially the select sex, I know that's really.
And the thing is that combination could probably work perfect for somebody else, which just didn't work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that there isn't like a universal drug that could save us. As Huey Lewis says, we need a new drug. I need a new drug. No, but joking. No, it's just like it'd be great if there was like a way to solve things. And that's where I think a lot of these things, like we're coming into danger. I know that we're kind of going off here, but like with the way that people are looking at neurodivergencies and depressions and anxieties and different things like that, and trying to say that, the drugs are just hurting people. But the thing is, it's like, yeah, it might hurt somebody, but it's going to help a lot more people. And you can't just judge everybody based on your experience with one person, because if you do that, you become fascist. And that's basically what, happens no matter what it is, whether it's someone's race, someone's gender, someone's, mental issues or whatever, it's just, you can't do that,
Yeah. I mean, we're not really going sidetrack, because I mean, the medication and the mental illness here is very,
because like I think one of the things we see here is like, I mean, the movie, it's interesting. It's about Daniel Johnston, but it's a lot about the people that were in his life more than it is him. Because it's the way that people reacted to him and his existence, and how it affected people in his family and his friends and other musicians and things of that nature. He was like a very unique voice in music. I'll say that. And I'm glad that his music exists, but if we could get rid of all of his music to make him a happier person.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would definitely.
Even though True Love Will Find You in the End is one of the most beautiful songs ever written. But it's a very beautiful song. Like a lot of his stuff it's not for everyone. I mean, like,
personally, some of the stuff where I'm just like, and sometimes I think it's not so much I think he's overrated, but I think some people, they like him because like it makes him seem cool. Like, I found this unique, like, kind of. Because, like, some of his songs, I think, are just, like, terrible. Like, we're just like, okay, what were you thinking here, dude? Like,
I mean, the thing is, it's like, everybody has different tastes when it comes to music in general, because it's like there are a lot of things, people will say the same thing. Like, there are times where I completely don't like something, but I understand why it's popular. But then there are times where there's like something like where I don't get it at all. But it's like, I guess there are probably people that like legitimately think everything he wrote was great. Kurt Cobain said he was the greatest living American songwriter.
Yeah, that's how he kind of got famous a little bit. He wore a T-shirt of his first album.
He always just wear the "Hi, How Are You" album cover that featured Jeremiah the Innocent, the frog on it.
That was one of his designs. He was also an artist.
Yeah, he was an artist, and his art sells for lots of money. But yeah, which is interesting. And I mean, the people okay, so the way the movie presents things at one point is he was raised in like a kind of slightly religious fundamentalist family. But as much as I have issues with religion in general, I think even though they had their ups and downs, I think the most positive people in his life were his parents.
Especially his dad. He seemed to be the one that really cared about, not so much cared about him more than his mom, but he was the one that was more, seemed more attentive to what was going on with them. Like
his parents, some of his siblings too seemed like they were there for him too. But some of them could only take him for so long, though.
Well, that's what at times when we're dealing with someone who's. I mean, I have a friend, who had issues similar to Daniel, and I don't know if it's the same diagnosis, but a lot of very similar. After a while, it's just like, hey, man, like, you can't just be like listening to loud music at all hours of the day, shit like that. They don't think about, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because they don't understand, cues that will tell them that, hey, that's not cool. Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes it's a part of love as well as to tell someone, hey, man, like you probably shouldn't be doing this right now, but yeah, speaking of music though, that's my name, Chord Organ Blues. That's one of his first recordings. I love that song. It's a lot of stuff with like unique artists like him and other people is that like their limitations is what made their music like even more unique. Cause like he was like recording like on really terrible equipment. He was like using things to make overdubs, which made it like have like this weird like reverb effect. Now, if you had like a perfect at his disposal, his songs probably would just be this boring thing, you know what I mean? Like, but this, the way his recording studio, well, the way his recording things were set up, you would hear like this reverb thing. You could actually hear like the foot pedal on like the organ he was playing, and you know, things like that. And one of the things too that they mentioned in the documentary, which I thought was really interesting, was again based off his own limitations or him just not thinking things through too much because he wasn't very an organized person, obvious, is that he would not make master tape of his recordings. And so what he would do is like someone's like, oh, hey, I want a recording. He doesn't have any more. He would just re-record the album.
Yeah. If he sometimes
so that people are different versions of the album. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I'm sure there's like various different cuts of these songs out there that people have on different tapes. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like the lo-fi quality of his music too is what makes it unique. It's kind of like it's kind of like comparing like a newer, which is they're still good and decent, Kevin Smith film to Clerks.
Yeah,
you know, Clerks, the black and white limited money that you had involved in it is the charm of the movie. It's like, you know, you can't recreate that with a big studio. And the same thing with his music, you can't necessarily recreate that like if you're in a, you know, studio at Capitol Records or something, you know.
It's just something like that having that shine. I mean, I'm not trying to compare myself to Daniel Johnston as like being like a genius or whatever, but like I think possibly the best song I had ever written was when I was 22 years old. It's called Stars. It's only 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I recorded that on the computer. And I don't think, I mean, maybe it's just a nostalgia thing. I don't know. But I have like written and created like probably over 100 songs since that song. And it's none of them have that sort of simplicity, that kind of emotion attached to it. Maybe I'm just looking at it from like rose-colored glasses or whatever. But like just that kind of feeling of like being able to create something with such a very little like technology before you, and you just have to pretty much just use your mind to try to figure out a way to make it sound okay. Like Jimi Hendrix the same way. Like Jimi Hendrix for his first album, he only had a 4-track recorder, and so what he would do is that when he ran out of tracks, he would have to re-record over the same tracks. But when you did that, you would still have a faint sound of the previous recording, so it wouldn't completely go away. And so like you would hear like faint like guitars in the background because now he's recording like a drum track or whatever. And like you wouldn't get that if he just had like a perfect studio. Like you wouldn't have that same quality, you know what I mean? So it's like sometimes heavy limitations, actually all the times I think heavy limitations actually make art better in a way, or at least more creative.
That's like, I mean, that's been said a lot of times, you know. It's like it's especially true in I think in music and film, that limitations create better work in some ways, or at least, you know, give you something to focus on. Because like now you'll get like, you know, it is kind of cool that now there's better equipment and it's more affordable for people and stuff. But when all you had was, you know, a crappy camcorder or a crappy cassette player, a tape recorder to record your music or make your film on, it creates some kind of, you know, unique quality to it that is kind of more personal and part of you than something that, you know, is mass produced by Marvel or something, you know, or mass produced by, I don't know, some big record company, you know.
Yeah, totally. And like, I don't know, just other parts of the movie too just kind of struck a chord with me, like a chord organ blues. No. In that place too, he was actually living with his brother in Texas at that point, kind of set up in his garage. His brother kind of had a talk with him about that. Like, hey man, like you can't be going to bed at like 5 a.m. and be like recording shit all night. Like, you know, like because we could hear you, like, you know, everybody else is waking up at like 7 a.m, you know, type of thing. And, but like, you know, whatever. And, but like there was this, and so like one of the, I don't ever think he actually was ever in a romantic relationship with Fortunate, because he was in love with Lori, but it was more of like a obsessive love. It wasn't like so much as like loved her. Like I can't really say I'm not him, but like, but it was like kind of, I think the idea.
In a lot of ways, it was like him seeing like the way that we see like romantic love through TV and movies and stuff, and that was kind of like how he saw her, in my opinion. Like, you know,
yeah, because he was going to college at that point, in this near his hometown. And this woman named Lori, she's very beautiful, and she was like kind of hanging out with like the the art type people, and he'd make like these like, because he always used to make like these like really cool like home videos as well. Like he would like play like the characters, like he played like his mom. He was like just super, like he was like really like not just music, like he was
a good artist.
like,
the movies he made were funny because it reminded me of like old things I did with my friends and stuff, like when I was in high school or right out of high school. And when I was younger, like I had a sketch comedy group called High Density Insulated Vacuole, which we just did sketches on a camcorder, and there's some kind of like unique quality to that.
One of my favorite is the ones, I don't know if you remember that, but you might remember it, but I'm not sure. But it was where it was you kept hearing the "Don't Cry for Me" Argentina song over and over again.
Yeah, I wrote that one. Yeah.
But you like end up murdering your friend or something like that by the end of it. Then you start humming "Don't Cry for Me" Argentina.
Yes. And I mean the sketches I have are totally things that I need to digitize all of them to put them out there for people, but they're like the amateur quality of them, and the things make those just kind of have a special place in my heart that are, like you were saying with your song Stars, it's just like something I feel like I was more creative then than when I had more money to make things and stuff. So yeah, it's just interesting.
Like I was saying too with myself, it could just be a nostalgia thing because we were young when we made those.
It is.
Our feelings were a little bit more intense than they are now about, because when you start getting older, you kind of become a little bit more, I wouldn't say numb, but like the feelings are not as like, they're not like as new, I guess, because when you're younger, you're experiencing things for the first time. So it's like a little bit different, and but like he would like, it would have his recorder, his wouldn't say a video recorder, but his camera or whatever. He kept trying to get her over and over again to say the words, "I love you, Daniel," because he wanted to have that on film. And so it's like, that's kind of creepy, but it's at the same time, that was his way of trying to have that so that he could look back and, see that, look at that film, you know what I mean? Or whatever type of thing. And so like she had no idea that he was like completely in love with her. Like, like it was a one-sided thing, but like he had said that like, she had like inspired like 1,000 songs, which again could be viewed as creepy and like the one interpretation. But like it was him, and almost because like with Daniel, it was almost like he was almost like a child, and I'm not saying that in a mean way, but like there was like a childlike wonder, even like as he got, like you can just see from some of these clips of him, like even when he's like in his 50s, like there's just like I don't know, it's just like there's something about like quote unquote like he never really fully grew up in a way, but like so in some ways that like impeded him, but then in other ways it allowed him to like continue to be creative. So it's like one of those things where it's like which is worse, which is better. It all depends on the, your perception kind of thing. And so like finally meeting her again, she was actually engaged to this dude who was owned a funeral home, or I don't remember exactly what it was.
He went away he went to school to become an undertaker. Yeah.
And so like one of his friend's grandparents had passed away, and so he was going to their funeral, and she was working at the funeral home, and she shook his hand, but then like he freaked out for some reason. I don't know if she didn't recognize him or he didn't want her to recognize. I don't know exactly what it was, but he just freaked it out for whatever, see her again. And because you would think, again, he wasn't in the right state of mind, you would think, oh, this would be perfect, become in love with this woman, I'm seeing her again, isn't that awesome? Instead he just runs away. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really get it, but that's
kind of something that people can relate to, that are shy or whatever too, in a way. It's just, it's really interesting. And another thing that I think people should watch too, after if you watch this documentary and want to get yourself another small jolt of Daniel Johnston, there's a documentary that came out 10 years after this movie. This movie came out in 2005, I should say. And then in 2015, there was a short film, /documentary kind of thing, real short, called Hi, How Are You, Daniel Johnston? And it's you can watch it on YouTube for free. It was directed by Gabriel Sunday, who played a younger version of Daniel Johnston in the movie. It was executive produced by people including Lana Del Rey and Mac Miller. So yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, but it's really worth watching. I watched it the other night. And it's really artsy and stuff, but it gives you kind of like an inside look into the mind of Daniel Johnston in a way. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to check. I was going to, but then I didn't have time. But yeah, I was gonna definitely check. And like, there's one part too, because it reminded me of that, because that was around 2015 was when. Because what's really sad, so Daniel, he passed away in 2019. It was like only for like, let's say like the past 5 years, maybe 10 years of his life is when he finally started getting his shit together. You know what I mean? So it's like he died. You know what I mean? So that's another tragedy. He was in of itself.
I mean, even they were showing a little bit about that in the movie, that he was able to go on tour by himself and stuff and do things. But I mean, like he did a lot of cool things towards the end of his life. He did like a thing, on October 10th, 2013. There was a New York City opening, of the exhibition, which then included a tribute performance led by, Jason Pierce of Spiritualized and Glenn Hansard of the Swell Season and the Frames, also from my favorite movie, Once, and there's some video that you can see of that where you got Swell Season performing with Daniel Johnston, which is cool. He comes out and performs, and he just walks on stage, does his singing, and then when he's done singing, the song is still going, and he just walks off stage when he's done with his part.
This takes, because I was thinking too, is like they the people are realizing that he's got limitations, and to allow. Yeah. That reminded me too of like one of the people in the movie documentary was saying that like Daniel seemed like he was more better suited as a songwriter as opposed to a song performer. Yeah. And if other people were to play his songs, those songs would sound a lot better. At least some of them more polished. Like for example, Well Season. I've seen that recording like a few years ago, and like it sounds a lot better than when Daniel's singing it. Like he didn't have a really great voice. He didn't really play guitar too well. He was really good at piano. For some reason, though, he's like, no, I'm not going to do piano. I'm going to play guitar shit. Okay, fine.
I think there was the whole, like, I want to be Bob Dylan sort of thing, It's like, yeah.
Especially early recordings, you could tell there's a Bob Dylan influence, like, very much so, his early ones. But, like, he was great at piano to, like, really, like, just almost, like... Yeah,
like, one of the...
play,
I think the person that said the music being recorded by other people was Kathy McCarty, who was a woman that he kind of dated for a short time, but she said they broke up, but he kept saying that she was his fiance and stuff like that, but he remained friends with her for the rest of his life, and she ended up marrying his best friend.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But she recorded an album in 1994 called Dead Dog's Eyeball, Songs of Daniel Johnston, where she covers a bunch of his songs, and I have yet to hear it. I'm assuming though it's probably really good, So
yeah, because she was in like a what was their style? I don't think I've ever heard her band. What was the band's name? I forgot the name of her band.
Glass Eye.
Glass Eye. I've never listened to them, but like I imagine they were probably pretty interesting because the way she was dressed was kind of like like reminded me of like the B-52s a little bit, how she was dressed.
It's like the 80s and the 90s like underground music scene, just like if I could like come back like reincarnated into the past or something, that's not how it works, but but like would love to just be in like artist community, because it kind of reminds me of like my life in the 90s and stuff too, because like the 80s and 90s especially, like I used to hang out with a bunch of artists and musicians and stuff, and I just like love that feeling of being around that type of people, that like people that have a spark of art into them. And it's like kind of like I think it's why I identify with like the musical Rent a lot, is because it's like that artist collective sort of community sort of thing,
Oh yeah, they're like they're the more interesting people in this world. I mean, that's back. You're not going to be able to go talk to a banker unless the banker is also an artist on the side. But if it's just like regular old,
because I mean, speaking of that, it's like Daniel was doing all this stuff, and then he got a job at McDonald's and was working at McDonald's, but not really working well. But he was like,
just was like kind of like the cleaning, like mopping, like he was which is weird because I didn't even know they even had people just for that specific job. Like I thought that was something they gave.
I don't think
people to
they do. I don't think they do, but they probably just had him do that, you know. So, yeah.
Maybe kind of badge for it or something. They're like, yeah, just give him a mop to clean off. But like, yeah, so that reminded me too. So like when he started getting popular in the local in Austin, Texas, people, because he didn't have his own phone, so like they kept calling the McDonald's, and like at first, the manager thought it was kind of cute and stuff. But after a while, it was like impeding on the business. Like, okay, like you can't keep calling McDonald's every 10 minutes, like and like, because like he was like having interviews with like freaking like music newspapers, like talking from the McDonald's phone, like like
yeah,
it's such like a obscure artist type of story as well. Like, yeah, man, like I called him at the McDonald's, I could hear like deep fryers in the background, like whatever. But yeah, at one point he joined a carnival just without even, because he was living with his sister at that point because his brother couldn't kind of just keep him there anymore. He was becoming much of an issue, so he lived with her for a while, who also lived in Texas, and he just like left one day, like, and he didn't come back for like 2 days, and so she finally found out that he had just joined a carnival. It didn't tell anyone, just joined, and he did that for a while, and then he somehow found his way, I think, into Austin, and then like, because it's just like something's like just happened by fate, because like he just happened to find himself in Austin, like the exact perfect moment time, especially for his style of music. And it was like, because like at one point, like MTV just like happened to interview him. Like it wasn't even there for MTV. Like he just was there, and then like someone interviews him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
it became kind of one of the main focuses of the show.
It so pissed off some people because again, he was. If you watch somebody old, like, he is terrible at guitar. I mean, at least in the beginning, like absolute, like just atrociously playing guitar. And like other people are kind of like pissed off, like, hey, I've been playing shit for years, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's I was gonna say, oh yeah, at one point he did have like a mental episode that he ended up having to be committed, and then he was always afraid of having to go back for that. But it's like because he in 1990 he played a music festival in Austin, Texas, and on the way back to West Virginia on a private 2-seater plane piloted by his father, he had a manic psychotic episode believing he was Casper the Friendly Ghost, and Johnston removed the keys from the plane ignition and threw it outside. His father, a former U.S. Air Force pilot, managed to successfully crash land the plane, even though there was nothing down there but trees. Although the plane was destroyed, Johnston and his father emerged with only minor injuries. As a result of this episode, Johnston was involuntarily committed to a mental hospital. Yeah, so
yeah, it's one of the several times he was committed to. And but man, because his dad knew basically to just to fly between trees and let the planes basically be the ones to crash to the trees. Which again, that's still gonna jolt you and cause at least internal injuries. You know what I mean? Just from the impact. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. So if he didn't know what he was doing, they probably could have died, both of them. Just sad because because they were asking him, because they heard about the story, they were thinking Captain America, and he's like, no, he thought he was. Because he even wrote a song, Casper the Friendly Ghost, so he probably had some fast Casper already, before that. And so he was reading this comic book about Casper. I didn't even know they had comics books about Casper, but I guess that's where the story probably came from. But his mom was saying he looked like he was so proud of himself that he thought he was doing a good thing, that they would be proud of him for crashing his father's plane. That's the other thing too. His family must have been pretty well off. Planes are not cheap, even those kind of planes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? That's not something that's cheap to buy. Airplane.
No, and I'm not sure. It probably wasn't their plane. It was probably something they rented too. So it was
or maybe not. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah. His dad, he was a really good flyer. I mean, he saved both of their lives. What he was doing. Yeah. I really wish that someone gave him LSD, and that was what kind of brought on his very first mental breakdown. It is probably what really jogged it along. You know what I mean? Because taking those kind of drugs when you're already mentally ill is not a good combination. It sucks, especially if you're not taking it therapeutically and taking a huge hit of acid, not like nowadays people do a thing called microdosing, like all these tech bros in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
They're like, a little bit of acid, bro, to like open my mind, my third eye, so I can come up with my next crypto scam or whatever. But like Daniel, they just like go on to full on take a whole tab of acid, which is just not like that. Like even if you're mentally well, that's not a good idea to go that far into like the K hole. I guess at this point it'd be like the A hole. No. Oh, sorry, I didn't even mean to say that. Even it's like,
well, it does explain a lot of tech bros. They go
because they're all a-holes. Yeah, no. And I'm gonna come up with the next Google, bro. All I need is like some ketamine, a dash with a little bit of acid, and like maybe the mescaline, maybe mushrooms if the mescaline's not available. We can substitute, And then they come up with like the idea of all time, and they're like, now all I gotta do is get Elon Musk or some other idiot billionaire to fund my dumb project, and then I'll be the next asshole millionaire, billionaire, whatever, with my website or whatever. But Daniel, unfortunately, he lives in a time before that happened. He couldn't get the idea. But maybe he could have like done like Google or something like that. That would have been a whole different trajectory for his life. But
I hate to break it to you, but there were assholes back then too. Anyways,
yeah. You're right. But he was also smoking pot a lot. And again, when you're not schizophrenia, I mean, I know at that point they didn't know for sure, but like, come on. Like, I mean, there were definitely signs everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you're like that well versed in the mental illness, if you're just being observant, you should know.
I mean, I know for sure they believe he had schizophrenia, but I know for sure he had bipolar disorder. So, which they called manic depression at the time. So yeah, it's like. Yeah.
And so, like, smoking lots of weed. Again, it's like stuff like this in moderation is fine. Like, I mean, if you're probably not if you're schizophrenic, but like, even if like you just like a little bit of weed, like low potency, if you just want a little bit of a buzz, probably not going to be a problem. If you want a little bit of LSD, just enough to kind of like maybe open your mind a little bit, probably not an issue. Instead, when you're going into like the most potent versions of these things, and then you're doing them on a regular basis, you start sleeping in weird patterns. You have no routine in your life, no structure, and so your brain is just breaking away as you speak. Like there's nothing, there's no glue, so to speak, to keep you together. You know what I mean? And then when you're on those kind of drugs, especially on such the high potency and the frequency that you're using them, it's like your life is just like in like a cloud, those, no pun intended, like cloud, if you will, cloud of smoke or, whatever, where you just whirl through like, it's like you always mention like a screen. Like that's a really good analogy. You always mention like a screen in front of your eyes or something like that. You know what I mean? Where you're like part of the world, but there's still this like separation between you and you get it. But it's a great analogy, actually, because you're like, it's like standing in front of a screen. You can see outside, you can talk to people, but you're like not with them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like that, or it's almost like when you're when you see those movies where there's like somebody visiting somebody in prison and there's like that glass between people or something. It's like, yeah. Yeah. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the movie before we wrap things up here?
Not really. I would just, I would suggest to me, if you haven't already watched it, to watch it. It is somewhat of a happy ending, but not completely. But it is, because at one point he does move back to Texas. He ends up finding the band, or actually a band found him because a dog was attacking him, I guess, in Waller, Texas, for some reason. Went to go save him, and the guy realized it was him, and then he joined their band.
Yeah,
and so Daniel. It's just a band with like some 20-year-olds or what
when he was in,
it's like, why not? Oh, why not? Like,
at the time the movie came out, he was like about 45. So yeah,
that was I
was looking up to see if there was any like charities that would be related to this to help people. I mean that people might want to help donate to. There is a charity called the Hi How Are You Project.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Which I just discovered. You can visit them at hihowareyou.org. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. According to their website, the Hi How Are You Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that aims to educate young people worldwide about the importance of mental health and well-being through creative content, events, and community building programs. Sounds like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like got a board of directors and everything, and I guess his family had some stuff to do with it too. So yeah, it's really really cool there. And I mean, in general, I'm hoping to get this edited and released during the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and hopefully, just try to be mindful of people that have mental health issues. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Don't write them off. Don't
write off people, whether they're, extremely different or, neurodivergent or just, quote unquote passing, sometimes, and everybody has issues in their life, whether it's just a day of depression or a day of sadness or a day of anxiety and stuff. Just, you never know what's going on in somebody's life. So just don't be an asshole. That's my big thing,
Yeah, definitely. Like people just try to. I mean, I'm glad that mental health awareness keeps keeping momentum and stuff. But like sometimes this stuff can be. I know you're not supposed to make a competition, but like sometimes like mental illnesses can be worse than physical illnesses because at least even physical, you still know what reality is. Basically, you know what I mean. But like sometimes with people who are just sick in the mind, they can get to the point where they literally do not know what's going on. That's got to be like one of the most terrifying. Like
people judge it like it's like like I had a lot of times like when I was going through my depression issues where people are like just get happy, think of something happy, be happy, pray, don't be sad. It's like, okay, if it was that easy, do you think I would be sitting here in this depression?
Man.
Yeah,
you want to be bro. Yeah, you want to be cool by being depressed.
Because there's a big difference between depression and being sad. It's like it's
totally different.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there's a big difference between having anxiety and being bipolar or something. It's like you can't judge somebody because everybody's mind is different. And it's like why they call like these type of illnesses like invisible illnesses or invisible injuries, because if somebody breaks their leg, you can tell they broke their leg, or somebody stabbed, you can tell they were stabbed. But or even if somebody has cancer, you can sometimes tell they have cancer. It's like something that's visual, invisible, but you can't necessarily know, because it's not like written on somebody's forehead that says, oh, I have anxiety or I have this or whatever, it's just what's there, So
totally.
So yeah, I think we've talked on our soapboxes here enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go out there and be kind to each other. Listen to some good music. Listen to some of Daniel Johnston's music. If you're in the mood. I will tell you, I know it's his most popular song probably, but True Love Will Find You in the End is just like it's like a minute and 50 seconds or something. It's like under 2 minutes long, and it's beautiful.
It's very because it's coming from a place of Daniel's mind and heart that is clear.
His voice, you can feel the emotion in it. Makes me cry when I listen to it.
It's very.
Yeah. But if you enjoyed this episode, folks, I know this is kind of a change here, but be sure to go to all2ReelToo.com and check us out. Share the show. Check out our TeePublic. You can buy some merchandise with some art that we've created and stuff too. Check out our Patreon. You can join some different tiers there and help support the show. If you want to keep hearing us talk about movies and TV shows and the world and whatnot, do it up.
I heard about the Mountain Dew commercial, but anyway, we won't talk about that. But
unless Mountain Dew wants to sponsor our show, then get in contact with us. And if anybody else wants to get in contact with us, it's mike@cullenpark.com. That's all I got to say here. Be different, be yourself, which is my motto of life.
Good motto.
Yeah. Used to write that on everything when I was in high school.
Really?
Yeah. It was my thing. I used to,
yeah.
It was my quote that I used to tell people. Also, folks, free Palestine.
Do it.
Free Ukraine. Free the Congo, Sudan.
Free the world.
Free the world. Get rid of borders. They suck.
not great.
No humans are illegal.
Believe that.
The earth is but one country and mankind its citizens.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Just like call and response here.
Yes. Trans lives are human lives.
I very much agree with that.
Yes. And just remember that I love you.
Agree with that.
Daniel Johnston probably loved you.
Probably.
Sesame loves you.
I don't. No, I'm kidding. I do.
Okay. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you had a change of heart during the episode.
No.
Decided you love our fans.
No change of heart. Nope.
And until next time, folks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All2ReelToo podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.